Hello and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. I'm Devin.
I'm Dan.
And today we're going to talk about books. Yay!
Yeah, we haven't done, we've talked about books a little bit, but not done, a show about books.
That's
which
true.
is what I've always wanted to do.
Like, since we started?
Yeah.
Or since the beginning of time?
Well, obviously since the beginning of time. No, but since we started doing the show, I always wanted to kind of try to talk about comics or manga.
Yeah.
We just never really got around to it.
Yeah. I like books. You like books. We're both friends of the library.
No, I'm friends of the World Wide Web Library.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's great. The internet is a great place to get books.
Yeah, I like reading. I can get lost in a book very easily.
Yeah,
when it's a good book.
Yeah, well, and I would say I don't read as much in long spurts anymore, but I read on my commute, I read at lunch, and I read a little bit after work here and there kind of thing.
I read on my commute too. I actually purposely leave so that I'll have 20 minutes between getting downtown and starting work, so that because otherwise I get so agitated on transit.
Yeah. I give myself about a 10-minute gap too, and I go sit somewhere and read and then walk to work.
You just need that little space in between, right?
Yeah.
No, I love reading. I read on my commute. I read in that little space of time. And then I usually read for 10 to 15 minutes before I go to bed. It's part of my wind down routine. But I still don't read as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Do you remember a few years ago I decided that I needed to read 50 books in a year?
I remember that, yes.
And I did.
Yeah.
I think I read more. Or I finished early or something like that. But I definitely, which is about a book a week, which isn't that crazy.
No, depending on the size of the book.
Yeah. I don't read that much now. I think I read about 2 books a month.
It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, it all depends too. For some of the books I've read of recent, they're huge.
Oh yeah.
And it just takes up way more time.
For sure.
And then you read something else that's like a 200-pager, and you just burn through it in a day or two, and you're like, wait, what did I finish something?
Yeah. And and then sometimes I'll be reading a couple books at once because I'll have two nonfiction books that are pretty different, or one nonfiction, one fiction. Yeah.
I only do a couple at a time.
I don't do 2 fiction at a time though, because I tend to like a certain kind of fiction. And actually that's not true.
I'd say for myself, I think it's just I get into the book I'm reading, I don't want to read other things. I'll just keep reading this.
One thing I noticed in the year that I was doing the 50 books is that, if I started a book, I was going to finish it.
Right.
And there was books that I hated. At every page, I was just like...
Yeah.
And then... This happened more than one... Okay, there's one book. I got to talk about one book I hate. I hate The Magicians.
Right.
That was... So, Andrew...
The college Harry Potter-ish one, right? Yeah.
Andrew recommended it.
Yes.
Calling
him out.
I am, because he listens to this.
That's what I was saying.
He recommended it because he had heard it was good, but he hadn't read it yet, and he wanted to know if it was good.
Nice.
It was not. They made a TV show of it, and there's a trilogy.
Yeah.
So I read the first one, and and he sold it to me it's Harry Potter in college, and I'm like, sweet, I will read this. Nothing happens in this book. It is the day-to-day life of a college student. There's a really fucking weird part where they end up in Antarctica pretending to... I'm ruining the book for people. And they turn themselves into snow foxes, and there's this weird sex scene between 2 characters as foxes.
Sure.
Which they hadn't had any romantic interest after this point. It's just suddenly they're it's a little furry pornish, I guess. And then it's just the end of the school year. They don't fight anything. Nothing fucking happens. It's the worst book. I hated it. Apparently stuff happens in the other ones.
Yeah.
And I have read books that I've hated and then read their sequel because I wanted to know what happened, but I did not do that with this one. It was awful. I hate that book. It's the worst book. It was the most boring. You think Harry Potter in college, and you're like, oh man, that's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, and I think because we were talking about it, I picture a Neil Gaiman type take on it, and you're adults, and you're oh, that could be more horrifying, and weird stuff could be happening, and then apparently they didn't go that way with that.
No, they just went the most boring possible route.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, I'm thinking a Neverwhere type situation, and you're oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. No,
Neverwhere was a great book.
Neverwhere is a great book, yeah.
Yeah. That was an awesome book.
Yeah. But we're not talking about those books. We're going to talk about books, or at least for myself, ones that I've read recently.
Yeah,
and
me too.
especially that I would recommend reading them. And yourself as well.
So I've been really into bullet journaling lately, and one of my pages is about books that I've read since I started my bullet journal.
Oh, okay.
And then I rate them out of 5. So I have little notes apparently too. So I was preparing for this podcast beforehand.
Nice. Well, I don't have the bullet journal. I just kind of jotted down a few books recently that I've read, and I'll just jump right into it here. So the first series I was going to talk about, and I mentioned it before on the show, is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And here was something I had no clue going in, and I think I mentioned it as well, is I didn't know how many books this was supposed to be. Apparently, I was doing some research yesterday. He announced that he was going to do 2 sets of 5 books.
Oh, God.
In this thing. So when I was reading the recent one, book 3, Oathbringer, I thought it might have been the end. And then I thought when it ended, I was like, oh, that was kind of neat. It could have ended it's like a sort of downer, not downer, but I was like, oh, a lot of left unsaid, but there's a lot of reveals and blah, blah, blah. Then I was like, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, there's a book 4 coming. But apparently there's 6 more books coming.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, if you're unfamiliar, the book 1 is The Way of Kings, came out in 2010. Words of Radiance was number 2, 2014, and then Oathbringer just recently in 2017. Really recommend these books. There's
fantasy.
Fantasy genre, of course, yes, which is like one of the main things I read, and it's just the way it's written and the system that he creates and the world that he builds. And apparently, because again, I didn't know much about Brandon Sanderson until he finished The Wheel of Time.
Right.
And then I started kind of...
But he's not that dude's son, right?
No.
I thought it was his son that finished it for some reason.
No. He was another author, and but of course he's written like The Mistborn and all these other stuff, right?
Right, which you really liked too.
I actually did enjoy those, but I read them after I read The Wheel of Time that he finished. So I'd heard his name before, but never really into him. But apparently he's like always built this big universe as he's going. Like things connect to the Mist world and to connect to this one. And so there's all these weird connections and stuff like that.
Does it connect to The Wheel of Time as well?
I don't think so. Maybe it's because that was Robert Jordan's thing.
That's not his.
Yeah, he was going to just let that be its own thing, right? So, yeah, it's an interesting world he creates. It's like, it gets attacked. Well, not attacked, but there's like high storms, they call them. And they periodically just happen. And they're always like east to west. And, they're just high winds. They're like hurricanes, basically, all the time. So, the world doesn't get to advance as much. And, basically, it's hard to explain, but yeah, he creates this system where it's like, okay, there's manifestations of like ideas they call spren. They're basically like spirits, but they all like look different and they're all like kind of really reactive to. So say you get like super hurt, like pain spren they call them, will like appear.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's like, so things can happen like if someone's drawing or writing something, and it's like they can get creation spren because they're attracting them, and so it's like a good thing. But it turns out not all of them are friendly, and things happen.
What?
I know.
You're kidding.
I don't want to go too spoilerish on the whole series here, but there's like they call them. There's these things called shard blades, which they're rare in the world, and they can cut through like anything. And when they cut through people, they don't actually cut people; they like sever their soul. So it's like if it hits your arm dies.
Oh.
But you're not dead or whatever. But then if it kills somebody, their eyes burn out. Like they just like they don't burn out, but they become like blackened and they just fall over dead, right? So they use them in warfare to wipe out hundreds of people because you just swinging it and killing people constantly. It's crazy. But there's like shard plate, which can protect you from that. And then so those are like, in the one kingdom you focus on a lot, Alethkar it's called, or Alethkar, I don't know. Their system is by eye color. So if you have lighter eyes, you're higher caste than someone with darker eyes.
So you'd be fine.
Sure, yeah.
You'd be pretty high. I'd be kind of mid-range.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things is that if you're a Shardblade owner, your eyes become super light.
Oh, so it can change.
It can change. So, like, that happens to a couple of characters and things like that. And, yeah, it's just, like I said, the way it's built and the way it's written, sometimes you don't know who is your main character, because I was, like, reading and I was like, is this a character we're following? And it's, like, this crazy, weird drunk. And you're like...
Perfect.
Like, okay. But I'll stick with it. But, So, so far there's the 3. Would highly recommend them. Like I said, the characters basically in the past, they called them the Desolations, and it was like something that just destroyed the world constantly. And it just continuously, periodically happened. And then there was the Knights Radiant, the Golem. There was 10 orders, and they fought it back. And then at one point, they stopped. They just kind of like left, and no one knows why. Which you find out through one of the books. Don't want to spoil that.
Yeah.
And then no one knows why, but the Desolation stopped.
Somebody knows why, because you find out later.
Because you find out. Yes. But the Desolation stopped, so the world was able to like progress.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was always like knocked back like ages to like the Stone Age basically, and then people had to try to rebuild, but then another one would happen, and etc. etc. So yeah, it's a really neat mythology.
Cool. Really
cool characters. They're big books, won't lie. They're all over 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
And so
that's a commitment.
Yeah, I did a reread after Oathbringer came out, and I don't think I will do it again, but I read Way of Kings, Word of Radiance, and then Oathbringer, like 1, 2, 3, back to back to back.
Nice.
I think I read a couple Philip K. Dick books in between one of them, because I was like, okay, I need a break. But
Yeah.
they were super good. I don't know much more I could say to praise it without getting further into it, but yeah, like a lot of cool characters, a lot of neat perspectives. He does sometimes these little like interludes between some chapters and stuff like that, where it's like he focuses on another character and you kind of get their perspective of something, then you know switches back. But and then eventually those characters tie into the main storyline and stuff like that. So not always about like, because I was kind of disappointed, and I think in the second one it focuses on another character. But I didn't realize that was his intent. Yeah. Because I was like, oh, what about these other people? Right? So, but it does bounce back and forth. I really enjoyed just the characterization and some of the storyline for one of the characters, especially Dalinar is his name, because I didn't think he was going to be like a main character kind of thing, but it changes, and like he's this old war veteran, and like, you know, he's trying to do the right thing, but everything's going wrong. But like, again, I didn't think he was going to be some kind of like actual main character, but he becomes like a really central figure in his story, and his turn it was really good, really well written, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, wow, that was really good and really cool. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you like it?
Oh, very much so. Like I said, I probably could talk the entire show about it, but I'm not going to bother.
No.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. But, so yeah, 3 of them. Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go to my first book.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the first book that I read since I got my bullet journal was Witch by Lisa Lister, which is a nonfiction. Yeah, it's a nonfiction book. I think it came up on my recommended in Amazon because I buy Tony a lot of occult books. He used to have a podcast that was like a horror podcast, but he's also just interested in like alien abductions and demons and shit like that.
Well, who isn't?
Yeah.
It's cool stuff.
It is cool stuff, yeah. So it came up and I bought it because the cover looked really cool. It's like black. Nice. It's a really well done cover.
Yeah.
It's black, and then in silver writing it says witch, and then the eye is like a crescent moon, and it's neat, right? I do not recommend this book.
Oh no.
I do really enjoy reading about other religions.
Oh, okay.
And I do enjoy specifically reading about like pagan religions.
Sure.
There's a really good book called Drawing Down the Moon that is like a series of, I can't remember who the author is, but it's a series of essays about different, I guess, pagan sects and their tradition. That lists sex like SECTS, not sex. Yeah. About their traditions and about kind of the history, and like there's a good essay about like why witches are associated with brooms and stuff like that, and it's pretty interesting. This book was not.
Oh, but this was a nonfiction book about like witches, or about a witch specifically?
This was a nonfiction book that was about modern witchcraft. I'll go with that. Lisa Lister also wrote a book called Love Your Lady Landscape, which is about menstruation. And a lot of witch felt like a commercial for Love Your Lady Landscape. She refers to it at least once a chapter.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
At least. Where she's like, my other book, Love Your Lady Landscape. And so it's like partially biographical because she's talking about like how her mom or her grandma was a witch, but her mom didn't pick it up, and then she wasn't really into it because her mom wasn't into it, and then she develops all these, like she develops endometriosis or gets diagnosed with endometriosis, and then she kind of reconnects to being a witch, and that cures her endometriosis, which, as a person who is not religious, I would say you should still go to a doctor instead of just making some tea. So I don't really endorse that.
Sure.
But whatever. Okay, so it cured her endometriosis, and then she talks about kind of her experiences, and it could be interesting because that's mixed with like the holidays and like the special dates and the traditions that are associated with those dates. It also is mixed with different ingredients, different herbs and like what they mean, and different crystals and what they mean, and stuff like that.
I would say, or is that like her interpretation, or just like some of the tradition that she's into, like how they follow it down?
I think it's kind of some of the traditions she's into, and it's kind of like there's some like generally accepted, like
Wolfsbane, blah.
Wolfsbane equals blah, or lilac equals blah, or whatever, right?
Okay, yeah.
So that could be interesting, right? Yeah. Mixing like somebody's story along with some facts.
Yes.
Quotation marks. Sure. However, she writes in first person, which I'm A-okay with. But she really wants to let you know she's cool. So she'll like... She throws in like almost like meme speak occasionally.
Oh no.
It was a fairly recently written book, and it already seems dated.
Right.
And she's, like when she's writing, she's like, "Hey girlfriend, blah 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 blah," and I'm like, just write. Take all that out.
Yeah. Cut that sentence. Start from the beginning. Start from the middle there.
Start from the. Just cut that out, right? Like.
Yeah.
It bothers me as a reader, and it bothers me as a writer to read it, because it, instead of feeling like you've got a connection with her, or like you're being brought into her world, it feels like she's trying to fill up a page. So it's like, "Hey girlfriend, that feeling when blah 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 blah." Blah, 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 right? And then it's like, "Oh, and by the way, in my book, Love Your Lady Landscape." And it was just too much for me. I ended up skipping over parts of it. I'm like, that's not necessary for me to read. So,
unfortunate.
Yeah, it's weird. And it does come across as a bit preachy at times, too. Like, when it comes to, and she's married to a Viking, and she talks about him. He's the Viking, and he has long hair, and I manifested him into my life. And I'm just like, oh God, like, I can't. I just can't. I have no problem with people believing different things and stuff like that, but the way that she's communicating this is not good.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, so I just... And it does come across as preachy occasionally as well, because it's just like with the medical stuff in particular, it's like all I had to do was realize I was a witch, and then all my ailments flew out the window.
Sure, that sounds like something out of a book I would enjoy reading, fantasy-wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wrote that it was like a 3 out of 5, but I think it's more like a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I was say that sounds generous after our little talk here.
I think I felt mean when I wrote less than 3, but it wasn't a very good book.
That's unfortunate.
I don't recommend it. Unless you like meme speak.
Sure.
And you think that becoming a witch could cure your endometriosis. Then if it aligns with the way that you think already, you'll love it.
Well, and that's what I was saying. I was curious if you had read the previous one, if this one would have flowed better or somehow, kind of connected more or something.
If Love Your Lady Landscape, which is
anything like this
stupid name, is written in a similar way, I would have hated it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. No, I mean, because like you say, especially in that kind of a book, the way the information is presented and written 100% affects it whether or not you enjoy it, right?
Yeah, totally. If it was written, I guess, in a little bit more of a straightforward manner, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But
Yeah,
this whole, like, hey, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
I'm trying to think. It was like Ain't God No, I think it was called? The Penn and Jillette one.
Yeah, I got that on my list, too. Okay, I read that, too.
When his stories are, like, there's a flow to them, and it's not like...
Well, he has a voice.
That's true.
And having a voice is different than writing in pop culture language that's going to be dated instantly. And also in God No, this was him telling specific stories about his life and not providing any factual information.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, that kind of style could have worked with that presenting information or whatever. It should be like, oh, here was a story of how I was trying to do a thing, and here's, like, the ingredients I used and what they kind of mean to...
Yeah,
like,
I guess so, but...
You know, it's just...
I don't know,
failed, unfortunately.
She's not a good writer.
Yeah, unfortunately. The editor
Sorry,
did not
Lisa.
edit enough unless she's her own editor.
Maybe she's her own editor.
That's
Maybe
possible.
it's self-published. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. Instagram seems to love it because that pops up all over Instagram. So, but it's a very Instagrammable cover.
There you go.
So
cover got you.
If you are into Instagram, that's a book for you.
Fair enough.
Your turn.
Oh, I should go next here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, and again, the next thing I read, so I did a video about Annihilation, the movie. Mm-hmm. Learned that it was based off a book. Didn't know until I saw that. And then so I was like, okay, well, I'm interested in this book. I really enjoyed the movie. Let's see kind of what it's about. So it was called the Southern Reach Trilogy. And it was funny because as soon as I saw a picture of it, I was like, oh, I've seen that in bookstores before. And the cover always kind of just... It's basically like a Times New Roman left part of an X and then like a feather.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't pick that up.
You've probably seen that cover as well. And myself as well. I was like, I remember that cover entirely. And I was always like, it just moved along. So I was kind of judging my head there.
I gotta say, the cover of books greatly impact.
But I think it was also because like that was a compilation, whereas the other three had their own specific covers. So, but anyway, so the three books are Annihilation, book 2 is Authority, and book 3 is Acceptance. First one, Annihilation, was 2014. The author is Jeff Vandermeer, American author apparently. I read all three of these books. It was about 640 pages for the three of them in like no time. I just burned through these books. They were so good.
Oh, awesome.
So interestingly written because it's all first person, except for the third one kind of bounces between a couple characters, but the first two are about one character, one POV, the entire book. It was so weird because I don't read a lot of books that are like that. Right, so... I
do. That's most of what I read.
Well, normally there's usually like some third person outside. And
yeah, actually, that's true.
Like it was interesting. It was like just straight on first person the entire way.
That's how Kelly Armstrong,
that's her stuff,
Osborne.
Osborne,
Armstrong.
It was, so they were really good, and it's about, similar to the movie, it's about Area X, and basically it's people investigating this area. It's expeditions going in, and so the first one is written from the perspective of a biologist character who was played eventually by Natalie Portman, even though they made her a doctor, whatever. But her character going into the Area X. Book 2 is about a character that's outside of Area X, so you get this whole other perspective.
Oh, cool.
It's about him coming in just after that expedition returns and stuff like that. And then the book 3 was basically, it picks up immediately after the ending of book 2. And it just continues on with him, flips back to the biologist character and a couple other characters, but then you get all sorts of really cool reveals and perspectives, and it was, like I said, it was really interesting. I just burned through these books because what was funny to me anyway is I have it on my e-reader, and it has a page counter. And like I said, it's about 640 pages. And the first book ended after like 140 pages. And I didn't think I was coming up to the end. And all of a sudden it just ended. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, no, why are you stopping on me? So yeah, just like I said, immediately rolled into book 2 and just kept it going. And then when it flipped to another character, I was like, oh no, I need to know what happened to her. Like, tell me what's happening. And so like I said, we get some reveals later and stuff like that in the book 3. So they were so good. And of course... the movie, it's its own entity, and they had to take things out of it. Like, there's so much more in the book, of course.
Of course, there always is.
There always is, and there was like these weird, there was kind of like these weird religious themes because there was a character. Well, I don't want to get too spoilery, but there was like a preacher involved and stuff like that, and so like there's all these things, but it's like it's not really religious, and it has a really neat kind of concept and idea about like a thing that's not conscious of what it's doing, and or it's just indifferent to what it's doing. So it's like, are these actions on purpose, or they just indifferent, or if it's one person or one thing doing things on purpose, or is it one thing doing something indifferent and something trying to help us stop it? You don't know, and that's what was all in this book. And yeah, it was, like I said, super good, and I had never even heard about it until I saw the movie. Right? And I was like, oh, this was... And of course, the movie was made by the same guy who made Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And
so it's good.
Yeah, it was really good. And like I said, then that kind of made me... I was like, well, if this guy was interested in these books, maybe there's some more there. So... Yeah, again, I don't want to just talk about him forever, but I don't think there's anything more I can say to just praise it, that it was like, definitely check these books out.
So you recommend it?
100%. They were super good and just, well written.
Good sci-fi.
Yeah, definitely. It's
hard sci-fi.
No, yeah, hard sci-fi and like real world sci-fi, because it kind of takes place in like a time like nowish kind of thing, right? And it's kind of like, what would we do to try something like to face this thing? We got no idea, right? So which is kind of going on in the book. It's like they don't even know what's going on. They're like, we're trying these things, we don't even know.
Nice.
But yeah, some creepy imagery and just really gets in your head. And I was like, that's kind of messed up. Like there was definitely a couple things where I read and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop reading for a second and like think about that, because that was weird.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, really enjoyed them. Yeah. So Annihilation, Authority, Acceptance, Southern Reach trilogy. Yeah.
Maybe I'll read them.
I would recommend it. It was like because it's not too sci-fi, it's not too horror, it's not too fantasy. It's like kind of a neat mix of the three.
That's
it's
cool.
More palatable, because it's high sci-fi with space, people are turned off, right? Yeah. Fantasy, Stormlight Archive, magic, creatures from another realm, turned off, right? So,
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, like I said, this was kind of more interesting than that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shall I go?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Okay, so the next book I read was called Curvy Fit Girl by Louise Green. It is another nonfiction book. And so I'm a plus size girl. I'll say that. And I was kind of like, again, this came up on my Amazon recommendation because I've been looking at a lot of books that like, I guess that were focused on being healthy without necessarily focusing on weight loss specifically, because it kind of like, if you've ever been in that headspace, it kind of messes you up, and then it takes up your like all of your brain basically is taken up by like, oh, what should I eat? How many calories is in this fucking grape, right? But it's like I've been trying to shift the focus to just be more healthy than being a certain weight. So I picked up this girl. I picked up a girl. Different podcast. Yeah. I picked up this book called Curvy Fit Girl, and it's okay. Yeah. Louise Green is from Vancouver, which is very cool. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that when I bought the book, but I'm like, oh, cool, repping the Vancouver friends. That's cool.
Local author.
And there is a big focus on, like, don't let your weight stop you from trying things that you want to try, which is a good message. Yeah. There are some like practical recommendations, like which companies have the best sports bras for really? Plus size girls, stuff like that, like stuff that is important. Yeah. But because I guess she wants to appeal to a broader audience, she doesn't really get into the specifics of anything aside from like what I just mentioned, right? She's a runner, so she does talk about running for quite a bit. Yeah. But there's but most of it is about being brave enough to try a class and how to find, like, if you're looking for a trainer, how to find a trainer that's weight neutral.
Right.
Or how to find a gym that's weight neutral and stuff like that. There's not a lot of specific. It's not like these exercises are better for you or this kind of sport will be easier. But I guess it's like she's just saying do anything. But
sure. There's
also like when you are kind of overweight, you do need to worry stuff about like your joints and stuff and like, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like you say, she wouldn't try to be like, oh, start with like some swimming activities because they're better on your joints, and then work towards these, or
do yoga or something like that, right?
And like at least like a path, maybe not like a hard program, but like a path to be like, start here, work to this, do that, and then that's kind of a good way to go. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
And like as a person who has knee problems, which I had even before I was plus size, if you have shit knees, I was hoping that there'd be stuff like, if you have bad joints, try this.
Right.
If you remember, so I was kind of, I guess it was a well-written book. There was a lot of information in it, but it wasn't the information I was looking for, and that's not necessarily her fault. That was me putting stuff on the book, right? There was like a very good chapter on food specifically, that it's like she's like, don't restrict yourself, but like you should treat food as fuel, which, you know, it's good advice. And, you know, stay away from processed foods. Don't eat a lot of sugar. Sure. It's not helping you. Pretty typical stuff, right? Yeah. There was a chapter where she demonstrates some stretches. But again, there was a little bit of a salesperson, undertone to it, because she does have a program on the internet that is like $250.
Dang.
But it's like a training program, and I guess you get one-on-one coaching with her and stuff like that. Okay. So there was a little bit of a push for that, which I'm like, sure. I don't know. I guess that's the world we live in, is like, you write a book, it's going to market your other program. You do your program, it's going to market your book. Yes. And then it just kind of, it takes up space in both of those things. Sure. So you're kind of like paying to be advertised to. I don't know. It's same with Witch, right? Yes. She has an online program too, which she pushes a little bit as well. Right. And it's just like, can't I just, like, I bought the book, can't I just have the book? Yeah. And then, like, in your About Me, be like, I also have this program. I was about to say, I mean, obviously I could do a long-ass rant about this, but it's everything as a service now. Yeah. When you're like, I don't want the service, I bought the thing. Give me the information, and I'll move along. Exactly, I'll use the information. I like taking courses on Udemy, which is like an online, this is off topic a bit, it's like an online university, and they're like, you can get they always have sales on, like, never buy anything at full price, because everything goes on sale for like $13 or $14 kind of thing, right? Some of the courses are great, and it's like, this is a very practical course. This is how you do X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. But some of them are like, you get about 60% information and 40% of them trying to sell you something more. Their program, or their, like, for more information you can blah blah blah, and I'm like, I don't want more information, I wanted the information in this fucking course. Yeah, that's fair. I was given bad reviews when that happened. This was 60% good and 40% in advertisement. But yeah, overall, like, it was good. It just wasn't comprehensive enough in the areas I wanted it to be. Sure. It was stuff I could have figured out kind of on my own. I know where to get a good sports bra. I know that I shouldn't eat processed food and refined sugar, but I do it anyways. Sure. And, like, I've never really had to, with the exception of yoga, which yoga classes I find incredibly intimidating in Vancouver, because everybody there is super fit. Like, I've never gone to a yoga class where I'm like, oh, it's a beginner's class. Yeah. Because the beginner's class are full of experts. And I went to this one, and I was beside a girl who was wearing a lace bodysuit. Weird. With her hair and makeup done, and it wasn't out of place in that class. And I was there in bicycle shorts and an oversized t-shirt with no makeup on. Yeah. And it just, so it gets like, with it, yeah, so yoga is intimidating to me to go to a class because I'm like, I am not there to be on display. I'm just there to like do that. But
do the yoga.
But like when I had class pass, I never felt self-conscious in a spinning class. I never felt self-conscious in like a bar class or at the gym or anything like that. It's just yoga. Yoga's garbage. Well, I like yoga, but I don't like yoga classes.
Yeah, I was about to say structured yoga in a class,
Yeah, I also don't like... I'm on a rant now. Yoga! I also don't like how... I can't find a yoga class where the teacher's not spiritual in some way, where they're like, breathe in the spirit of the earth through your feet. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. You're going to have to break it down for me.
Didn't know we were about to learn some Dragon Ball Z shit right here.
Yeah, really, right? I'm like, if you tell me to put my right foot in the corner of my mat, I can do that.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to, like, breathe in the energy of the universe and breathe out bad feelings. Like, nah, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not happening. Anyways, your turn.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, before I get into some other stuff, I would say I had this book recommended to me by a buddy I clung with, actually. We were kind of talking about it. It's called the Rap Yearbook. And basically...
A what?
The Rap Yearbook.
Like... R-A-P?
R-A-P.
Not W-R-A-P?
No, R-A-P.
Is it a wrapping paper?
No. It's a book about rap songs.
Okay.
And what this author did is he went from...
I didn't know you were interested in rap.
I'm not interested in rap per se, but I'm really always interested in, like, music history. Like, one of my favorite podcasts is The Ongoing History of Music.
That's fair.
And it's always interesting to me. And
I'm not that into metal, but I found that... What was... Sam Dunn is the name of the guy.
Yeah, then he did
he did global metal...
And he did, like, the anthropology of metal.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but it was really good.
The evolution? No, wait. I can't remember what the first one was called. It's something metal.
Yeah.
But then the follow-up documentary was called Global Metal, and then he had a mini-series on Much Music.
Yeah, about the anthropology and metal and how it evolved and everything. So I'm interested in that kind of thing. So, and this one goes from 1989, which is basically, like, the first year a rap song existed. Mm-hmm. On like the radio to I think it's about 2014 or 2015, and basically every year he just picks like one song and he's like, this is the song that defined that year of rap, essentially, and he kind of defends it and what have you and explains.
Is Eminem on there?
Eminem is definitely
for
in there.
Slim Shady?
No, My Name Is.
Yeah, isn't that Slim Shady?
Yeah.
No.
It actually, interestingly enough, the guy who just produced that song, but basically it's like he took like it was Dr. Dre, and Dre did the same thing for Snoop Dogg, where he says his name like 40 times in the song.
Nice.
And, it was basically, and it was like introducing the rapper, introducing Snoop Dogg, introducing Eminem. Yeah, because Dre produced both those tracks. Nice. But anyway, so he goes through the year, and I'm not finished the book.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Is Kanye...
Kanye's in there.
Kanye's in there? And Beastie Boys?
The Beastie Boys were not, surprisingly.
Oh.
Yeah, I was actually kind of shocked. But I think he was focusing more on, like, hip-hop rap stuff. Whereas, like, they did, I don't know. Like, the Beastie Boys, I actually almost thought were going to be in there.
Yeah. Wu-Tang Clan?
Wu-Tang was definitely in there. Yeah. No, yeah. Like, anybody who you could think of that had, like, a big rap song at one point is in there. But it's weird because it takes
Kanye in there for... I'm going to keep interrupting.
Okay, sorry.
Is he in there for Gold Digger or for...
Actually, he is in there for Gold Digger.
Okay, yeah.
And I think, like I said, I'm only up to, like... I'm almost finished. I'm on to, like, I'm almost at 2010, I think.
Okay.
So I've not finished the book yet.
Yeah.
But it was kind of neat, especially in the early years. I like the early years stuff because that's when, like, rap was still, like, underground and, like, took hardcore cues from metal. Like, Ice-T was, like, rapping, like, straight metal shit.
Yeah, right? Totally, yeah.
Talking about, like, murdering people constantly. Drugs and crazy stuff like that, right? And then it changes into becoming, like, rapping about stuff. And Puff Daddy really solidified that. It's like it's a downturn, in my opinion, because then he started rapping about how much boat and cash I got.
Well, I mean, like, obviously, the assassination of
Tupac and Biggie
would have a huge impact, and then I guess that
Tupac especially
shifted it to more
basically Puff Daddy stepped in to their void, and so did Jay-Z.
I remember that.
So did Puff Daddy and Jay-Z basically stepped into that space.
What Jay-Z songs in there?
There's a couple.
Oh, okay.
Like there's like one or two like that is just him, and then him with somebody else, like someone else's track, but like featuring Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, or he produced it.
Did the Ant-Word make it on there?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall them being in there. The song by Macklemore, I think it is, the white guy or whatever.
Oh, yeah, the thrift shop,
yeah,
right?
Thrift Shop, that's in there.
Ah.
But I'm not at that chapter yet, so because that was later. But
yeah, I guess that had a bit of an impact. That's such a terrible song.
yes, well, and that's
Have you listened? Are you listening to it as you read it?
some of them I do.
Yeah.
Definitely, because I'm like, how does that song even go?
Yeah.
But so like I said, there's definitely some cool stuff in there, and it's a neat book, and it's just kind of like it's a neat kind of conversation thing that it's like you're like that's the song that he picks, because in the end of his little blurb,
I kind of want to read this now that you're talking about it.
it's a really cool book. He has somebody else, like an editor from Rolling Stone or something like that, pick a song from the year, and they'll pick something different, and then kind of like talk about why. Yeah, they think it's like that's the track. So yeah, kind of a neat book. Like I said, I was more interested because it kind of comes to a closer year. Like I said, about 2014, 2015 is when it ends. So I was like, oh, that's pretty recent. Right? So.
Do you remember like Puff Daddy's whole crew?
He talks about the Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy, while of course you can talk about how ridiculous he is, but at basically a couple points, almost through like a decade, he was like the name in rap. He had more songs like be in the tops charts than anybody.
I believe it, yeah.
At the time or since even.
Yeah.
Because of course album sales are a different thing now than back then in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like,
because he had like, there was like him, and then there was like Mace.
Yeah.
And then wasn't Missy Elliott kind of like on the...
I think he produced one of her tracks and stuff. Yeah.
Is Missy Elliott on the list? Because Work It is one of the greatest songs ever.
I think it was either it was on the list or the other guy picked it for his choice. Yeah. He was like, no, it should be this song. I think that's what it was.
Like Work It, what, 2003? 2004?
Like yeah. It was definitely in the book because I recall it.
Yeah.
Specifically
being mentioned. Such a great song.
I recall it specifically being mentioned.
It was like her comeback almost, because she had been like out of the game for like a couple of years.
And like I say, I'm not really into rap or hip hop.
Neither am I.
I listen to Chaos, who's a local.
Yeah,
he's like my favorite rapper.
Has he made it in there? I guess
he's not, unfortunately.
Yeah, like what would he be in there for? Crab Bucket, maybe.
Crab Bucket, maybe. Yeah. He's done some good stuff, I think. But I'm not disagreeing. But I was trying to think what is like most popular stuff. Yeah,
is like Drake in there.
Drake is in there. Yeah. So because that's really up to the more recent times.
Yeah.
That's what's more interesting about the book, I feel, is that in the beginning there's like all this hardcore stuff, and then it really takes this weird turn and then like even like 50 Cent, of course, is in there, and
because he was
almost like the break, and
he's kind of like part of Eminem's crew, right? Yeah. Like Eminem and
apparently when they met, they talk about in the book, is that they were both intimidated by each other, and so they both didn't think like each other. He's like, I don't really think he liked me.
Aw, romance.
Yeah, basically. But they were both like, no.
Cute. But Eminem had his crew, the D12.
Yes, D12 was his band,
Yeah.
And apparently he came up with the name Slim Shady, like, before they went to, like, record. Like, well, he was just like, oh, I need a name. They came up with the name Slim Shady, like, 2 minutes before.
Was Rap God in there? Because Rap God broke records for the fastest...
I think this is just after Rap God.
Okay.
Because Rap God should be in there.
Yeah.
Because that song is amazing.
Yeah.
Not even just for the record part that he speaks really fast. It's actually a really, really good song, actually.
I know, I enjoy it too. Like, Eminem obviously says stuff that's controversial a lot.
That's his persona.
And I do not agree with everything he says, but I do really enjoy listening to him.
He definitely has talent and style. And and that's one of the things that's funny in the book is you can see these eras. There's always at least like one antagonist rapper.
Yeah.
And like right now for us it's Eminem, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kanye's saying some weird stuff, but it's because it's Kanye. But you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
But anyway, that's the rappier book.
This is off topic.
Sure.
There is, what are they called? There's a YouTube channel that does the auto-tuning and stuff.
Auto-tune the news or something else?
No, something else. It's like Epic something. Oh, yeah. Anyways.
Because I don't think those are around anymore.
Go look up Kanye West as a Tame Impala song. It is amazing because it sounds just like Tame Impala. Which is like, I guess, an indie rock band. Yeah. Are you familiar with them?
I've heard the name, but I assume if I heard a song, I'd like recognize it.
They're good. I like them. They're okay. But they take weird things that he says out of context in interviews. And they made a video. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, so wrap your book.
Yeah, wrap your book.
I actually want to read that now. That sounds really interesting.
That's what made me want to read it. My buddy was telling me about it, and I was like, I want to read this book.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Okay, so the next one on my list was God No by Penn Jillette. Funny story, Dan lent this to me like 4 years ago, and then like a year later he asked for it back, and I was like, you never lent this to me. And then I was cleaning out my books because I'm trying to downsize right now, and I found it, so I read it, and I haven't given it back to him yet.
That's fair.
Yeah. Penn Jillette is an atheist.
Yes.
And on the cover of the book, it makes it seem like the book is going to be about atheism.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. Is it like him in like a almost like a church robe?
Yeah,
or something
he's in
like
a
that?
church robe.
Yeah, he's in a church robe, right? In this one. Yeah.
But I can't remember what the subtitle is. But it's something about atheism.
Yeah, it's like living without God or living a life or something like that. Yeah.
So I didn't think it was going to be like a theology book about atheism, as stupid as that sounds. But I wasn't expecting it to be a memoir.
Yeah, myself as well. So
I was a bit disappointed about 3 chapters in when I realized that's what it was.
Right.
But I still, once I let go of that, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically just stories from his life.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting life, you know.
Sure.
He was in the circus and
started juggling.
He's a magician. You know, when he met his wife, she was a groupie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when I started reading it, I wasn't in the mood for a memoir. I was in the mood for something that was a little bit more informative. So I was a little bit disappointed, but I didn't mind it. It was a fast read.
Yeah, definitely.
It's his libertarian stance does get like a bit irritating sometimes. Sure. But it's because I'm not a libertarian. I thought I was at one point, and then I'm like, no, it's not who I am. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I like Penn Jillette. I think he's funny. I enjoyed bullshit, and I enjoy Fool Us, and I enjoy magic.
Sure.
One guy, there was a guy that came in. There's a shop, and he's like, "Oh, look, I can do it." I can't remember how we got onto this, but he's like, "I can do a magic trick that 5-year-olds really find entertaining," and then he did it, and I'm like, do it again. Nice. Because I just like magic.
Nice.
Yeah, it was alright.
What was the rating out of 5?
3.
3? 3 out of 5, okay.
Yeah, like I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't reread it.
Sure.
And it wouldn't be the first book that I would recommend to somebody if they were like, what should I read? I wouldn't be like, oh, you gotta read this, right?
I remember I picked that up because it was like a bargain.
It was probably bargain bin, right?
Buy at like a Kohl's or the Chapters, and I was like, oh, cool. You know, I don't think I've ever read anything written by him yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you know, I'll give it a go.
It reads a bit. This might sound a little bit snooty when I say it. But it reads a bit like he knew it was going to end up in the bargain bin. You know that kind of book that ends up in the bargain bin?
Well, like I say, it was just stories from his life.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, you know, I'm just going to tap out some stories about my life.
Yeah,
some people might be interested, some people might not.
I don't know. It was amusing.
Yeah, I thought there were some amusing moments in it. And yeah, I definitely finished it and recommend it to read.
Yeah, I finished it. Yeah. But it wasn't like...
Wasn't the greatest book ever.
Yeah, I'm not rushing out to give it to other people.
Fair enough.
No, I sound so negative. I'm like, I didn't like which.
Well,
Curvy Girl wasn't informative enough.
Well, it happens sometimes.
God knows, stupid.
You just read stuff that's just, you know, doesn't click.
My next 2 books, when I do talk about them,
they clicked.
They get good reviews.
Okay, well, because I know I've been talking a ton here, I'll just quickly go through some. Like I said, I read a few Philip K. Dick books in between the Stormlight and stuff like that, and so I'm just going to rattle off a couple that I have read before or I read recently and would recommend. I'd recommend especially, I think it's these 5 anyway.
Okay.
Scanner Darkly.
Which was a movie.
Which was turned into a movie as well.
Was the movie similar to the book? I haven't read any Philip K. Dick.
No, yeah, it was very similar.
Okay.
They actually did a really good job, and it's actually a really excellent movie. I totally recommend seeing the movie.
I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
When I watched it, I was expecting The Matrix because they advertised it as being like The Matrix.
Yeah, the advertising totally screwed that movie over.
Yeah, it did.
Because otherwise it detracts from Robert Downey Jr.'s amazing performance in it.
Yeah, he's like crazy.
Yeah,
right?
He's totally crazy in it.
Yeah. I feel like that should be a rewatch because I remember... Don't they... Didn't they film it and then animate over the filming?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all very like almost cel-shaded animation over top of it, and it's really cool. So good book as well. Do Androids Dream About Electric Sheep? I recently reread that because I was like,
which is Blade Runner?
Was adapted into Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Okay.
Of course, the book is far different and weirder, and it's really good and very enjoyable. The Man in the High Castle, which was recommended to me by a coworker, and it's
a Prime show.
Yeah, I didn't know it was turned into a TV show.
Yeah, they were filming in the neighborhood that I work in.
Yeah, I had no idea when I read the book that it was turned into a TV show. I found it afterwards. And it's about like an alternate history where Germany won World War II.
You know who's really into that? Somebody that we both used to work with.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that can be a really good setting for stuff. That can be a really cool setting for some stuff. And in this book, it follows like some people living on the West Coast where they weren't as affected by the loss of the U.S. and just trying to eke out an existence. And, some stuff happens, of course. And then this one here was really cool. And this was a favorite of my coworker who was recommending. It was called The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. This one is like some crazy Philip K. Dick stuff where it's like there's some space stuff involved and moon planets everywhere and some weird stuff going down. Nice. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Are they literal stigmatas or are they metaphorical stigmatas?
I believe they're metaphorical.
Okay.
It's about this guy. It follows the other characters, but basically the Palmer de Ehrlich character went off to like another galaxy or another solar system, sorry, and then like comes back, and then it's about like people dealing with that, but it's all crazy weird. So really cool. I would recommend those ones. I know Philip K. Dick, prolific writer, written a lot, but these five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Where I had read them.
Those are your top recommendations?
Well, it was funny because I had read them and then I found a compilation of Philip K. Dick books that were like, it's like some of his best, and it was those 5 books.
Nice.
So I was like, I feel like I read the good ones.
All right, that's fair.
But I've read some of his other stuff, of course, but these ones are
those are the top
super good.
Cool.
Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this book I would heavily recommend for people to read. It's called Them by John Ronson.
Right, you were talking about this.
Yeah, so John Ronson, it's nonfiction. Again, John Ronson has written, 5 or 6 books.
Right.
One of the books that people would probably recognize was Men Who Stare at Goats, which was turned into a George Clooney movie.
I read that book, actually.
I want to read it, too.
Yeah.
I got introduced to John Ronson because he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is okay. But anyways, regardless. But I was listening to it because he has his own podcast that is only available through Audible, so I haven't listened to it. But it's a podcast about what happened in the porn industry when Pornhub became a thing and porn became free and it shifted.
Right.
And can you still be a professional porn star? And the rise of bestoke porn, because that's a thing that can happen now.
Right.
And cam girls and all that. So I'm like, that's super interesting. And then they were talking about his book Them, which is the one I just read.
Yeah.
Specifically because Alex Jones, who's people know who he is now, John Ronson knew him before he was famous.
Right.
And Joe Rogan is friends with him, and they were kind of talking about that. Anyways,
nice.
It's a good book. It started off being about him spending time with extremists. So Muslim extremists, white supremacists, not the most friendliest people, right? And he found that there was a common thread of these people all believe that the world is run by an organization who meets in a hotel room once a year to decide who's going to get elected and all this stuff, right? So them, yeah. Well, yeah. So he decides to try to find this hotel room. And it's just little short stories, mostly about him spending time with different extremists.
Sure.
He spends time with one of the daughters that was part of Ruby Ridge, which is actually I found it to be a pretty powerful little chapter.
Right.
But it's kind of hilarious. Like, it's just like a one-off, like, little story, but they're all kind of connected. And just, like, the funniest things... Okay, one thing that is comedy gold to me is when somebody says something outrageous and the person who is answering just says, okay. I don't know why, but
Sure.
That is... So, like, that and, like... people finishing sentences wrong are like two of my favorite things in comedy. So like Arrested Development and BoJack does it a lot, where it'll be like, oh, don't worry, they'll never blow up the White House, and then the immediate next scene is somebody being like, they blew up the White House. It's so funny. It gets me every time. But there's a lot of like John Ronson talking to somebody and they say something like ridiculous, and then he's just like, okay.
Because what else are you gonna say?
Yeah, right? What else are you gonna? You're not. Yeah.
You're gonna be like, I don't know about that guy.
Yeah. And like, oh man, there's a chapter where he talks to like a progressive KKK member who wants to like reform their image and like doesn't let the members use like the N-word and all this stuff, and it's so funny to read because this person is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's and then it ends with them going to Bohemian Grove, which are you familiar? Bohemian Grove is like a bunch of rich people go and they burn a giant effigy of an owl, and there's all this, like, Alex Jones goes with him undercover, and so Alex Jones was like, no, I saw them killing babies, and John Ronson's like, they didn't kill any babies. But I don't know, it's really good, and I highly recommend it. I think I passed it on to my dad, but when I get it back, I'll give it to you.
Sure. Sounds like an interesting read.
Yeah, I don't know, I give it 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a book I would recommend. It was funny to read, and it opened my eyes to other people's experiences.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And I was going to say...
did you enjoy Men Who Stare at Goats? Did you find it
Yeah, I
good?
did, actually. It was enjoyable. And
Did you like his writing style? I think it's so funny.
Well, and again, maybe he's gotten better since Men Who Stare at Goats, right? Because that was early
I think Zem was one of his first books.
Really?
I think he wrote it before Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah, I don't know. It was maybe because the material is just different, because it's like he's like sort of talking about his interviews and then trying to... I don't know. It was... The writing style didn't click with me, but I enjoyed the story anyway.
Okay, that's fair.
And I was like, I wanted to read more kind of thing. And because, again, like, some of the things he talks about in the Men Who Stare at Goats is real, and it's like, this happened.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I'm not a total believer in many of the things, and that it's like, they're like, oh, this guy's claiming this, and he's not even presenting it like he believes.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just kind of, I'm like, really? Like, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah, totally.
So...
I think that's why I liked them, because... just some of the stuff that people believe in. So, oh man, I think Lynn would like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was going to be my question. Was it interesting because of the varied groups he speaks to?
Yes.
Like, he just doesn't. It's not just like Muslims and like. But was there more than you were expecting? Something that he's talking to.
So I think it was interesting. Part of the reason it was interesting because it humanizes these groups, right? Sure. So like when you think of ISIS, you think of just evil people who behead people or whatever, right? But or like the KKK are just all assholes that are like terrible people, and they do hold terrible beliefs, but they're still like humans. Yeah. And then they still... I don't know, again, it's like one of the things that I just find really funny is that they face logistical problems that normal human beings would face, right? Yeah. So, like, you don't think about... So, like, the Muslim extremist, for example, that he talks to, is constantly putting out flyers with his phone number on it that are talking about, like, killing all the Jews. By the way, John Ronson is Jewish too, which makes it interesting. And then he'll be confronted about it and be like, did you put those flyers up? And he's like, nope. And they're like, your phone number's on. He's like, my phone number's in the phone book. Anybody could have put those up. Which or like he's being interviewed by John Ronson, and he's asking John Ronson to drive him everywhere. So they're like going to like like a place for like Staples to go
Yeah.
get photocopies made about like so it's so funny, right?
Yeah.
Like, and there's a part where he has this plan to release like 1,000 black balloons with postcards that have like, I don't know, facts or
some sort of message,
some sort of propaganda.
Yeah.
But they didn't anticipate that the postcards would be too heavy because they were going to release it and then to float on the wind, and then when they like popped, like the card would reach somebody, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that the card weighed down the balloon, so then they just had all these like balloons with postcards on the ground, and the like members, like his followers, were trying to get them to like go up, and it wasn't working. So then they just released 1,000 black balloons, but there was no message attached.
There's symbolism.
So it's just like that kind of logistical problems I find really amusing.
That's fair.
And it can be this like people, right? Like they have to do admin things. Or like the KKK guy that wants, to reform their image. Yeah. It's just so stupid. It's so funny.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. What's your next?
Sure. Well, I could talk about a couple. But I like to.
Or are you out?
No. I got still a few things here. But I was gonna say I like to also read manga and some comics as well, and keep up the steady diet on that kind of stuff. The most recent ones. Well, I don't think. Yeah, actually, so there's this one horror manga artist, and I think he's the only one I've ever read of his stuff. His name is Junji Ito, and I usually do a reread of what I consider like the best thing, Uzumaki it's called, Spiral, and I just got a hardcover copy of it, so I'm pretty happy about that.
It's pretty.
And I got a copy of his compilation that was released recently called Shiver. But one of his other ones I really enjoy is called Black Paradox, and it's about like this group of people, and they get together and they use like an app to basically like they're gonna go commit suicide as a group. And it's like you can't back out then at this point because there's like a group of people that are gonna go, and so they go into the woods, something goes wrong, and then all of a sudden these like jewels are discovered from like another dimension, and then it's about them going in, exploring them and stuff like that. It's really cool, and it's not too horrifying. But
wasn't there actually like a suicide app that went around?
Yeah, probably.
Like I vaguely remember hearing it, but then it might have just been like local news.
I would say, or maybe it was like a hoax or whatever, and like, oh, somebody wrote it, and it was like there was nothing.
Yeah, I read it on Facebook, therefore not true.
Exactly. It was a hoax. Yeah. But yeah, so and then like I said, the Uzumaki, it's about this small town, and then all these weird spiral related things start happening to the town, and things go horrible, of course, because it's a horror comic.
Nice.
And all sorts of just weird things happen, and it's just, I find his imagination and his stuff isn't like basic horror, like people getting slashed or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like, it's like creepy imagery and creepy visuals and like creepy ideas, and I like that more because then it's like you start thinking about the creepy.
Then you can't sleep at night, etc. Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend looking up that guy if you want to check out some of that stuff. He's got some shorter stuff and some longer stuff.
Cool.
And then, comic-wise, recently been reading the Marvel Infinity Saga because as of recording, I haven't seen the Marvel Infinity.
I've seen it. It's good, man.
I haven't seen the Avengers 3 yet.
I think it's good.
I want to check it out, but until that time, I was just reading some of the Infinity Saga stuff, and it's really enjoyable. It's funny.
Can I say one thing without spoiling it for you?
I don't know, as long as it's not a spoiler.
What's the name of the bad guy again?
Thanos,
yeah. Yes. Sorry, I knew that. I just couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
Turns out I'm not Pepper Potts or Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm actually Thanos. So when you watch it, you'll be like, oh yeah. Like, both Andrew and I turned to each other at the end of the movie and we're like, I was on Thanos' side.
That's fair. Well, that's why there's a second movie and the story develops as we go. But I was going to say it was interesting because reading, because it goes back to like the beginning and like when Thanos actually gets the Infinity Gems together, which I thought was really cool. And then just some of the old ones and like how he gets stopped and like his whole goal. And then eventually the next two sagas they do, it's about like, I don't know, a character that hasn't been introduced yet in the MCU, or if he is in this movie, I haven't seen it yet. And just like...
Which character?
Adam Warlock.
Oh, yes.
Okay, see, so...
No.
about his two sides. Basically, he splits them because he gets godlike power, and then he splits out because he's like, I don't want to be a tyrant or like try to too good. And then both those manifestations of himself try to get godlike power and stuff like that. So it was good.
Nice.
I'm not finished it yet, but I'm really enjoying it. It's,
you know how you were telling me about it like in the store the other day?
Yeah.
I don't know. I must be tired or something because I was talking to Tony about it later, and I swear we just continued the conversation on, and I just totally blurred the line about who I was talking to.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I know, we just talked about this, Tony. Cool.
But I mean, of course, if you're talking manga that I would recommend reading, of course I'd recommend like Akira. Amazing.
I don't read a lot of manga.
Yeah, no, it's not for everybody, but I definitely enjoy some of it.
I've been like curious about reading Oran.
Yeah.
Because apparently it expands the story more than the anime did.
I would not be shocked by that.
But it just seems like a really big commitment.
Yeah, there could be a lot. That's one of the things about reading the manga is there's like a lot. There's a lot.
Like, yeah.
Which is crazy, like, because it's like just one or a few or two people are like drawing and writing these things. And they squeeze it out.
Yeah,
so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Mad respect.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, Junji Ito, some good stuff there.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to briefly touch on what I'm reading right now and then also tell a story. Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
So I started rereading the All Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness. I've talked about it before, that's why I don't want to go into it too much, but It's about a witch and a vampire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's interesting because the witch is the main character, Diana. She studies the history of alchemy. And Deborah Harkness is actually, like, has her doctorate, and she also does that. So there's a lot of really interesting information in the books that you wouldn't necessarily get from your typical, like, romance, paranormal romance series, right? It's actually really well written, like, better written than, like, Kelly Armstrong.
Yeah, Armstrong.
Yeah. The first book is great. The second book, they go back in time.
Of course.
So I'm rereading the second book right now. So they're like in Elizabethan England. And because she has
those skills,
yeah, she does a good job of like giving you the day-to-day life of Elizabethan England. So cool. I recommend it. It's very good. Oh. Trilogy is excellent. I've read it more than once.
Okay, fair enough.
This is probably like my third read through of it because I like it. But anyways, my story. So I am... We are downsizing.
Yeah.
I have been going through my books. I think I got rid of like 100 books today. No, I got rid of... Sorry. I have 100 or so books set aside, and I got rid of about half of them. So 50 books today. I brought like 20 or so to this bookstore that I've never been to called Companion Books in Burnaby. It's just on the... Like, it's on Hastings on the other side of Boundary.
Right.
It is the cutest little bookstore, like used bookstore. It is so well organized.
Nice.
Like, I love the idea of a non-organized bookstore.
Really?
Like McLeod's Books.
Oh, God.
For example, when you go in there,
nightmare.
it is... You feel like you're going into a movie or something.
Yeah, you feel like you can't buy anything.
Because everybody there is cranky.
Yeah.
And there's piles of books on the floor and you can't find anything. There's literally piles of books on the floor. You can't find anything because it is not organized. So you just have to like close your eyes and reach out and grab a book. This Companion Bookstore was super organized.
Right.
It was great. And they do like, they basically, if you bring in books and it meets their criteria, then they give you half of what they're going to sell it for.
Oh, nice.
And you can, on used books, you can use, by the way, this isn't sponsored. It sounds like I'm doing a mid-roll ad, but I'm not. You can use 100% of your credit on books too, because some bookstores you're like, oh, you have to pay 50-50 in cash or whatever.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. So I was there, and while she was like going through my books, I went and I found a book for Tony, but I also found a book for me called The Bride of Science, which is kind of a history book that's about Byron's daughter, who was a scientist and developed
she's
code. Yeah, she's the code.
Yes, she's the scientist, yes.
Yeah, Ada Lovelace or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, I'm really excited to read it. And it was such a good find that I probably wouldn't have found wandering around chapters or on Amazon, because it's not typically what I look for.
Yeah.
But it jumped off the shelf for me. Not literally, but I just thought, I'm like, oh, I gotta read this. Actually, when I saw The Bride of Science, I kind of thought it might be a biography about Mary Shelley.
Right.
Because I thought it might be like a Frankenstein.
I was going to say, as soon as you said the title to me, I almost thought it was going to be about Marie Curie.
Oh, that would have been good, too. Yeah, because I thought maybe like The Bride of Science Fiction is what I was like. Yeah, but no, I'm like really excited to read it. And then when I brought it up to the counter, they're like, oh, if you...
Sorry, before you continue, because the woman you're talking about, she was one of the first women coders. Like, she created almost like modern programming. Yes. In a sense, right?
Like, before we had computers.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited to read it. But when I brought it up, the owner and then the guy that was working there were both like, if you like that, you should read Galileo's Daughter, which apparently is like, it reads a bit like a novel, but it's about letters between Galileo and his daughter, who was a cloistered nun.
Yeah, which this was all news to me when Devin told me. I didn't know he had a daughter, nor that she was a nun.
Yeah, so I'm like super excited to read that too.
Yeah, because it's interesting, like, because the church, of course, persecuted Galileo for his views.
Yeah, totally, right? So it's like, what are they writing about?
Yeah.
It's apparently a historical memoir of science, faith, and love. And again, it's like a book that I wouldn't have necessarily picked out or would have come up in my Amazon feed or anything like that. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm totally going to bring them more books so that I can get more books that I'll be like, what should I read? Do you have more?
Oh, sure. I mean, I always got more.
That was my story.
Nice.
I'm getting rid of books and I got more books.
That's what I love. That's my favorite part of the story is you're like, I was getting rid of the books and then I bought 4 more books.
But here's the thing.
You got rid of more than you bought.
Yeah, I got rid of like 25. Well, I got rid of like 50 books today because I went through and I picked out the ones that were in the best condition to bring to the bookstore.
Yeah.
Actually, she was like, when she was like going through it, she's like, there are some real gems in here. I'm really glad you brought it in. So I'm like, oh, okay, good. Cool. I'm not like...
Yeah, just bringing in random crap.
Yeah. But yeah, I also like brought a bunch of stuff to Value Village.
Sure.
Because I was like, these are in terrible condition, but they're really good books and somebody will want to pay $1 for them.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I would hope so.
And there's no bed bugs in them.
Yay!
Because I don't have bed bugs.
Yeah, well, I was say for myself, I guess I could talk about, again, this is a big series of books, and one of the reasons I picked this one up is I've seen them in bookstores constantly, and I was always like, man, there is a lot of books in this series. It must be good. Like, people must be reading it. Never really kind of got into it, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll read because they're big, again. Yeah. So I was kind of intimidated that I was like, I don't want to read a big, giant book and be disappointed, and then I know that it's a series, because maybe it gets better, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Oh my god, Andrew recommended these stupid steampunk books, and I read 2 of them, and I'm like, these are awful, but maybe it gets better. Maybe I should... I ended up killing a giant spider with one of them, and then it just... like, that was it.
So I'm talking about Malazan, Book of the Fallen, written by Stephen Erickson, who is again a Canadian. I believe he's from the island.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and 10 books in the main series that he wrote on this in this epic. They are so good.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, I've heard you talk about
them. Yeah, they're ridiculous. The first one's called Gardens of the Moon. It's not even the first one published. It's the first one chronologically. Take that out. No, anyway. Nope. It's the first one. And then, it was, again, so unique. It's a fantasy series, but really... What? Yeah.
You read fantasy?
Once in a while. Really unique in his magic system, in his world building, in the book 4 and 5, he's still like introducing like elder races and all and like crazy backstory stuff. And I was like, wait, what are you doing, man? Like, shouldn't he be like in the main thrust still? But no, he really imaginative, cool system. And I really liked how in this series of books, you know, in most fantasy series, of course, there's always like the protagonist, and he's like, say if he's in the army, but he's like above, and he does like heroic things.
Yeah.
In this, those characters exist, but they exist within, like, say, an army unit, and if they get noticed, they're like, oh man, I screwed up. They're like, I killed that bad guy, now people know I'm good. You know, they're like, I really messed up, I gotta stay low, and, you know, my squad cover for me, kind of thing, right? Like,
nice.
they really kind of, like, push a whole different dynamic about, like, it's about the squad and keeping together with your troops and, and all this stuff, not being like, oh, forget them and I'm gonna rise above. And so it's a really kind of a
I'm gonna kill the dragon and save the princess.
Yeah, no, they're like, run away from that. We don't want to deal anything with that. You know, they're like, they'll be fine. You know? Nice. Yeah, so it's a really different kind of take on that kind of a story. And again, obviously because it's 10 books, it's huge and epic. It jumps all around, and there's big world-shattering events and crazy god things, and things twist and turn, of course, so that the people you think were good are not, and vice versa. And you're like, what is even happening? And what I find was interesting was another author, he asked Stephen to write books in his world, and he wrote 5 books about some other characters that are kind of mentioned in the main 10, and that they're like kind of like they pop up once in a while, but he writes like their kind of story.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was really weird, and I read them before I did a reread on the Stormlight Archive, and I read those 5 books, and I was expecting them to get more involved in the other events, but they don't. So I was kind of like disappointed when I first started reading it. Yeah. And then I was like, are we focusing on these people? I was like, where's those other cool guys I liked? But, you know, I was like, oh, and then when I kind of knew what was going on, it became more interesting. I didn't feel that they were as creative, but they were still really cool and good. But yeah, so Malazan, Book of the Fallen, 10 of them. If you want to go hard on a big series, it's a good one to go for. It's a good one,
yeah. Is it finished?
Yes. Okay. That was one of the reasons as well, is that I started reading it. It was finished.
That helps.
Yeah. Now I'm on the hook with A Stormlight Archive, Game of Thrones, and I was really been trying to avoid doing that in my life ever since I was waiting for the Wheel of Time. Yeah. Because I read the Wheel of Time when it first came out.
I remember. Yeah. I'm waiting for the last book in the Throne of Glass series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so I read the second. This still miffs me. Yeah. But it's my own fault. I read the second to last book. But when I had started this series, the girl at the bookstore had recommended it, and she's like, "Great news! It's finished. It's a series that's finished. There's whatever amount of books." Yeah. I'm like, cool. It was not finished. The last book comes out in September.
Oh, it's not so bad.
Sarah Maas is a prolific writer because she has this book with like 8 books in it or whatever. Yeah. And then she's got another series that has like 5 books that she just finished. But anyways, and they both have been coming out simultaneously. Like she puts out like 2 books a year. Nice. Like she got it. She got the hustle on, right? Yeah. This series, a book came out, and I bought it thinking it was the last book.
Right, I remember that.
But it was a companion book about characters I didn't give a shit about.
Yes, I remember that.
And a storyline I didn't really care about. Right. Yeah. So.
Well, and that was this as well with the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I knew that the other guy had written, and that those were done as well.
Yeah, so you knew they were companion books.
Steven Erikson has started a trilogy, and I think there's only 2 of them out, about basically the before times of that world.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I was like, what? What are you writing? But I was like, I'm just going to wait on that. And apparently I was talking to somebody, and they're like, oh man, it's really good. And I was like, oh man, I got to read these now.
Speaking of like series, is Dresden done?
I was about to bring up Dresden because I was going to say we're kind of both on the hook for Dresden.
Yeah.
And he writes a lot as well.
Because I feel like Jim Butcher is great. Yeah. I enjoyed the Dresden series. Yeah. But I feel like the book before the last book was the end.
Well, and that I was going to say...
and then we had a heist.
And then we had the heist book. Yeah, I mean, the heist book was fun. Yeah. I feel like that one was like... It was fun.
It was fun. It was a great book. But I feel like I can't remember what the title was.
I don't remember it wasn't Ghost Story. It was one after Ghost Stories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like...
Cold Days?
Cold Days, yeah.
I think it was Cold Days.
It wrapped up a storyline that had been going for a while.
For like 14 books.
Yeah. So if he was going to end the series, that would have been the spot to end the series. Yeah. But then he wrote another one, which was great. It was a heist book. Yeah. I can't remember what it's called.
I also can't remember.
But it seems like like, oh, okay, we're going to start this new arc.
Yeah.
Because there was kind of stuff put in place that we could have, but now we've been waiting for like 3,000 years.
It's definitely been longer than the other ones, and it's maybe he's got to step back, refresh on the ideas, because the heist one went pretty far. Like, cause then he brought in the Hades, and then it was pretty intense, and I was like, wow, it was like, because he likes to bring in a lot of like mythology stuff, like fairy tale type stuff, especially.
Totally.
Right, so I was always amazed that they kept going, and that they were always still good.
Yeah, I mean, they were good. If you were reading them back to back to back, they do get pretty repetitive. Yes. So I would recommend, like, maybe read the first 4 and then start breaking it up with a novel in between.
Well, I was going to say, or at least those first 7 or so are really repetitive. And then after that, I think he just assumes it's his audience who knows what's up.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he stops.
I actually started with book 4 and then I went back and read 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, 7, and the rest of it in order.
But I was going to bring up that series as well, because I know we're both
series.
Yeah, we're both on that, and it's kind of like they're very enjoyable, and like you just sit down and read them, and they're a cool little story. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I'm okay if there's no more, but if there's more, cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. I just felt like fine either way. Yeah, but I do feel like the book before
could have been a logical
penultimate book was the conclusion.
Could have been a good conclusion.
Yeah, he could have just stopped.
Retired.
If he wanted to stop writing about Dresden, that would have been the place to stop.
Yeah. It would have been fun.
Yeah, but no, he wrote another one. Maybe he's just on contract to or something like that.
But what kind of author has a contract to write 16 books in a series?
Jim Butcher.
Apparently.
Then he wrote his steampunk adventure, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't want to read any more steampunk books. They're awful. I have never read a good steampunk book, and the reason is the good steampunk books are ones that don't try to be steampunk books because it's like they were written in that time, but they were science fiction in that time.
I was gonna say comment with potentially a good book that's steampunk.
Yeah. If you know a good steampunk, let me know. Yeah. And I'll, it's because rant time.
No, we've ranted too much.
Sorry. But my issue with steampunk books is that when they are written to be a steampunk book, there are too many pop culture references and it becomes distracting.
Yeah. Or like you say, they just become dated.
And they become dated.
Yeah.
I read one and they were stealing lines directly from pirates.
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean. There was a part where they ripped a bodice and they were like, clearly you've never been to Singapore. And I'm like, really? Jesus. But I just finished reading it and then I read the next one.
Yeah, he wrote it in there and was like, I'll come up with something later, and no one came up with anything later.
So they just left it in. Or they're like, oh, you know what, it'll be really funny if we reference this movie. Yeah. It's brand new and it'll never be old. And everyone will like it forever.
Sure.
And they're not going to make 5 movies that start to suck.
No, yeah. But fortunately, the first one's really good.
Yeah, the first one's great.
Yeah. Anywho.
Yeah.
Your next book.
That's it.
Oh, no, I thought you had after them. Oh, no.
Yeah, Discovery of Witches. I already talked about it.
Oh.
I'm reading Shadow of Night. Oh. I'm showing the microphone the book. It's really stupid. Yeah. I'm reading Shadow of Night right now, which is the second book where it's Elizabethan England.
Right. Well, you were talking about that already. Sorry, I thought you had another book or more on the list.
I have a pile of books on my desk that are to read.
Yeah. Well,
but I haven't read them yet.
Myself, like I said, I was planning on maybe doing a reread of either Neverwhere or Good Omens.
Oh my god, I want to reread Good Omens. Good Omens is so good.
It's really good. But then I was also thinking, okay, I'm not a Stephen King fan. I've read very few of his books.
I hate Stephen King.
And I thought about reading it, but then I was like, but I've heard it's just so... it's big, and it's like
one of the.
I wish it was distilled into something smaller, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. But I guess that's what the movie is.
It's one of the books he wrote on coke, though.
Yeah,
that's why.
No, well, that's what I mean. I know it's like his Lord of the Rings in a sense that it's really big, and there's all sorts of cool monsters because he likes all these elements, and I'm like, but I don't know if I want to read that.
I just don't like Stephen King. I never read anything by Stephen King that I liked.
Fair enough. I was gonna say, I was thinking of there was another Michael Lewis is his name, and he's written a bunch of nonfiction books that I've read, including The Big Short, which of course was turned into a movie.
Oh, right, yeah.
Flash Boys was also really good, Liar Poker, and he, I think one of his more recent ones was called The Undoing Project, and it's about 2 scientists who discover Something About Our Brain, and it's about like their story. And he has his writing style is really good. Like he's a journalist, and he's been a journalist, so he knows how to like distill facts down, but still make it entertaining and palatable. So yeah, I really enjoy his books, and so I have his book that I was thinking of reading. Like I say, there's always a stack of books on the go, and then like I said, I just picked up those two.
I just picked up 2 books today too.
Exactly right. So it's like there's always something that crops up, but.
I wish I could read like 10 books at once because I like books, man. Yeah. I like reading. It's good.
Well, then I think we should wrap up our discussion here.
Did you have any other books you wanted to talk about?
No, I think, like I said, we kind of went through everything on my list.
Cool.
I mean, there's series after series. I was going to maybe reference... I found this cool little list of 10 science fiction books you should read.
I remember when you went through that.
And I read all 10 of them. And I had already read half the list, fortunately. So, but, there was things like the Isaac Asimov Foundation was on there. They're really good. And a couple things from Highline. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and A Stranger in a Strange Land, Starship Troopers, of course. All 3 of those were really good books. I'd recommend those. There was one, Rendezvous with Rathma, was really cool as well. It's about like a big giant space probe basically entering our galaxy. People go explore it. This is where it's funny because it's been tried to turn into a movie or a TV series.
Oh, I could see that not happening.
Nothing happens. Literally, these people go in there and they explore this thing, and it kind of like it's like a biosphere world that just like kind of awakens and then leaves. They never see anything. They never encounter anything. It's literally just nothing happens.
Awesome.
But it's very well written and very enjoyable because it's from our perspective. They're like, oh man, there's these weird stairs, and we go down it, and what's going on? We don't know.
Yeah.
But literally nothing happens.
Sweet.
And like Rimworld? No. Ringworld, I think is what it's called, yes. Ringworld.
I was thinking of Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, Ringworld. But yeah, that was also on the list. It was a very neat book. So like I said, I very much enjoy the reading.
I like reading.
To the sci-fi fantasy, but and of course Dune, which Devin hates.
Oh, God, I couldn't get through a page of that. It was so boring.
It is awesome.
I know that sounds like I should have tried harder.
Yeah.
But then I got the audiobook, and I was trying to like listen to the audiobook, and I couldn't.
I've never read it or heard it on the audiobook.
Oh my God, it was so boring.
Oh really?
I couldn't get into I don't think I could finish a chapter, and I was like, I don't even remember what they said because it was so boring.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's not my book.
And again, maybe because it's from like the era of like kind of like it's like the same thing we've talked about with like Lord of the Rings, the books, right? Like
oh yeah, those are
400 pages
hard to read
before they're out of the Shire. 400 pages. You literally read an entire other book.
Yeah,
before something happens. And Dune, not the same style, but it's like it's got that build up.
Yeah.
Very slow, and they're establishing all these things before anything even happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see it turning people off, but that's fair. Like I said, I don't really have much more.
No, I got nothing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think we could wrap it up.
Wrap it up. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Tome of Uselessness, our podcast about books today.
Yeah.
Yay, books.
Books are great. Definitely get out there and read some.
Yeah, go to your local library and take out a book and never return it. You can find us on the internet at tomeofuselessness.com, which is our website.
Yeah.
You can comment on our things if you want to. I think we've had like 2 comments.
Nice.
Yeah. We're also available on all podcasting platforms. If you're on iTunes, you should rate and review us because that's what you're supposed to ask people to do.
Yeah, why
not? We're also on YouTube, Tome of Uselessness, the podcast. We're on Instagram, Tome_of_uselessness. And we are also on Twitter, where we are useless_tome.
Perfect.
We have 27 followers on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Only 90% of them are bots.
Yeah. Do you know what else is cool is that our website, we can see analytics, so we can see where people are listening from. So
or at least clicking from.
Or at least clicking from, yeah. So if you were listening and you're clicking from South Africa, can you please say hello to us? Because I have no idea who that would be. Do you?
No.
There's also, I know who's listening from Taiwan, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But there's somebody in Spain. There's people all over the world. There's a ton of people in the States. There's people from Texas, and
I
think I know who that is. But you know, if I just, you know, say hi.
Yeah.
Because we would love to know who you are and how you found us and if you like us.
Thanks for listening.
And thank you for listening.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it.
Yeah, have a great night.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Go read something.